Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. At our last event in May, Julie Douglas, the president of Dealer Pay, took our event by storm and brought up a subject that's been near and dear to the hearts of many of you. It is making sure that our dealerships can get paid. And Julie has a dealer specific solution specifically that helps fixed operations. And we are very humbled to have her back again here today. Julie Douglas, welcome to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Julie, you look great, and you're
Oh,
you're all decked out in roaring 20s. So you've earned that nickname, if you will, the sales lady extraordinaire, and I can see why. You really got a lot of the audience really interested in what you do at Dealer Pay. We all want to get paid. Every dealership wants to make sure they can get paid, do it quickly, do it efficiently. Julie, things have changed and are continuing to evolve in fixed operations. So kind of take us through that, starting with, for our audience, what is Dealer Pay?
Sure, Ted. So Dealer Pay is a full dealer specific payments platform. And I know that sounds loaded, a payments platform. It's a point of sale solution that is designed just for dealers to accept any kind of electronic payment. So, for example, it can be used in fixed ops as well as sales finance. But the goal is to allow dealers to accept payments securely, efficiently, and of course, as fast as possible.
And you do a lot to help fixed operations. Talk to us a little bit about that, because I see the fixed ops numbers are huge and growing, and that's where we got to make sure we get paid.
Sure. So a lot of the volume that we deal with is from fixed ops. So that's where the majority of the transactions happen, parts, service, et cetera. And what's important about it is not just making the process in the dealership the best it can be in all of its ways it can be great, but also the consumer's experience while they're making the payment. I often tell dealers when we discuss our solutions is the payment is typically the last experience that customer has at the dealership. So you want to be able to provide them the best last experience in order to get their business back.
And that's the one they're going to remember, Julie.
Mhm.
Now, again, there's a lot of companies that do these types of transactions in other industries, but you're in automotive and you're specifically in store. Take us through that, if you don't mind.
Sure. So, I mean, I've been doing this for 22 years, believe it or not. And, the dealership landscape or model is different than a lot of businesses because it's several businesses under one roof. So there has to be specific things that take place when you are trying to take payments, not just the acceptance of the payments themselves, but how everything happens sort of on the back end, from managing a transaction to reconciling the bank or the DMS the next day. So we really have put a lot of emphasis on all those little baby steps to make sure they're just absolutely perfect in every department.
And you told us the phrase last time, modern payment acceptance. Take us through that and what that means, because that really caught the ear of a lot of people in the audience.
Sure. So it's kind of like for years, we've all heard if it's not broken, don't fix it. Well, that's actually hurting dealers by not fixing it, if you will. Modern payments, there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes. A lot of things cannot happen to improve the experience on a standalone device. So when I speak of modern, I speak of a point of sale system or some kind of web-based platform to accept a payment. Everything from your contactless payments to any kind of online or hosted links. Mobile, which we talk about as big, but there's several other things that can happen behind the scenes that actually help reduce costs. So, for example, if I've got a standalone terminal, whether it's connected to an Ethernet cable and it just works, and customers hand over cards and they take their payments and they get a batch and it deposits, all that's great. But the dealership is missing out on several opportunities to make the experience better, make it more productive, and even save money. Ted, do you know what interchange is?
I've heard that name.
Okay, so interchange is the fees that the card brands charge.
Okay.
Companies like mine add a little bit to it so we can make a profit. We have solutions in our system that actually lower interchange or cost.
Wow.
And a lot of dealers don't realize that. They think everything's apples to apples, but we're going to be the oranges here and say that we're going to change the game a little bit and show them ways where they can actually lower the cost or the interchange behind every transaction.
I saw a statistic that you shared with us, 62% in fixed ops. Speak to that if you don't mind.
So it used to be actually a lot more. So 62% of the payments take place in fixed ops. We now have a lot more payments happening in sales and finance, rental, leasing, and even the office or accounting. But yeah, the majority of the transactional payments that we take on behalf of dealers happen in fixed ops.
Wow. That's a tremendous.
Lots of movement. And there's a lot of, similar transactions. So that's why it's pretty important to make sure we've got a lot of detail behind each one for the office to reconcile.
And what about that I remember the days of the customer standing in line at the cashier and that process taking a lot of time. Now we've got the ability to accept payments on the customer's on their personal device, the phone.
Sure.
Talk to us about that.
Sure. So, to avoid the line, or even in some case, avoid the customer even having to come inside the dealership, we've offered ways to help improve that experience and give the customer multiple ways to pay. So we've got options for them to send out payment links by text or email. We've got hosted payment pages that we can add to the dealership's website to accept payment. And then we've got some other mobile options that we're implementing as well, so the dealer can actually have the customer present and use a mobile device to take the payment. So the idea is to create that convenience factor again for the consumer, while all still maintaining data plus security to make sure we've got the I's dotted and the T's crossed.
Julie, is it one size fits all, or do you work with each dealership on their individual needs?
Individual needs, absolutely. There's a lot of common problems that we can solve, which is great because it shows that we've got experience, and we end up solving problems that the dealership didn't really realize that they had initially. But yeah, every dealership operates differently. So here's an example. I have some dealerships that ask me, well, how many credit card terminals will I need? How many payment terminals? And it's really based on their layout or their specific dealership, or how the customers flow through, whether service, parts, or finance. And I have some dealers that are huge and do massive volumes and have one terminal, and I've got others that have 10, 15 terminals, and they're either doing the same or less volume. So we treat each experience that we encounter with the dealership as their own custom setup, if you will.
We're talking today to Julie Douglas, who is the president of Dealer Pay and specifically handles automotive retail dealerships. She's got over 20 years of experience in that field. And she has taken us through something called modern payment acceptance. And if your dealership is not utilizing that, it's actually costing dealerships today more money. One of the things I hear from dealers and managers is that merchant processing fees, Julie, and have they increased? And, talk to us about that.
Sure. So there's a couple of areas that, yes, there are increases. The fees have increased because there's a lot more card not present transactions today.
Right.
So when I mentioned things like hosted payment links and online, and even if the customer picks up the phone and calls and, the advisor key enters the data, that's still considered a card not present transaction. Card not present transactions cost more because there's a little bit more risk involved. The other reason, and it's not necessarily a bad thing that merchant processing fees have increased, is because dealerships' volumes and average tickets have increased. we have not seen this kind of volume or activity really ever with electronic payments in the dealer space. So the fact that this fee is becoming more noticeable is because there's more activity, more volume that's being processed on a daily basis. So yes, it's higher, but don't worry, there's solutions to help mitigate that. Couple, like I talked about before, with, you know, making sure you are optimizing interchange, or that you're getting the best rates possible through the system that you use, but also that concept of surcharging. Are you familiar with that as well, Ted?
I am, yes. That's actually lately I've heard more and more people talking about that.
Yeah, so, you know, I'll be honest, it's about a third. I got a third of the dealers that are completely on board. I got a third that are really interested but not sure, ready to pull the trigger, and then I have a third that want nothing to do with it. The good news is the solutions that we provide allow dealers to put their toe in the water a little first and see how it goes. So we can help dealers, as we use our pay share program. We're sharing the fee, and we allow them to customize it by dollar threshold, by department, and even card present versus not present. So some dealers want to pass the full fee. Great, let's do it. Some want to pass half of it. Super. Others want to just kind of customize how it goes. We have the setup to help you do that, and we can help you, you know, figure out the areas where we can, you know, get you some of that money back, if you will.
Your message has really rung true with a lot of the folks who are on the roundtable, because you're talking about being able to collect, do it with a modern system, something that doesn't slow the transaction down. And you're right. I think when the customer thinks back, the last thing they remember is paying for that service. And if that is a time-consuming, painful process, that sticks out for them, and ultimately that hurts the relationship with the dealership as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think of myself and how I go through life and how I buy things. And no, I may be a little different because this is my industry, but, you know, I want that stuff to happen fast. I don't want to wait. I want to be able to pick up my vehicle, you know, figure out what I owe, make the quick payment. And, you know, my husband makes fun of me because I always use Apple Pay on my phone. He doesn't quite do that yet, but I'm working on them. But, you know, it's quick, it's efficient, it makes sense for me. And I think dealers need to recognize that there's a lot of consumers like me out there that prefer that method. And if they don't have it, you know, it's just a little more inconvenient.
All right. So if a dealer has not gone for their tune-up to get into the modern world, okay, with modern payment acceptance, you know, it's probably costing them money. It's costing them certainly time. And, you know, for the management that's watching today, you know, it's probably costing them, you know, a little aggravation as well in having to follow up on all these things. Julie, how does our audience get started? Where should they start? When should they reach out to you? You know, take us through that.
Sure. So, I mean, you can call me direct. I think my cell phone's right there. You can call or text me. I'll reach out. We'll set up a quick meeting, a quick demo. I want to, you know, I always start with a quick discovery call so I can evaluate what the specific needs are, and if there are problems, how I can solve it. But it's a very simple, easy process to get started. And I was just talking to a dealership today. Their concerns were, you know, going to what you refer to as a modern system, that there's going to be a lot of tech issues, or there's network issues, or, you know, the training is going to be cumbersome. It's going to be this big thing. And it's really quite the opposite. Users really like to use dealer pay system because we, you know, first of all, we're going to do all the training and implementation and testing and make sure everything's fabulous. But once you get on it, it's fast, it's productive. It's like, what did you do before it?
And looking into the future, I would imagine that volume is going to continue. It's only going to get stronger and get
Sure.
better. And, you know, there'll be more and more dollars that we need to accept this way. So it's probably timely to start looking at it now if you're not already.
Right. And it's important to have a good partner. And of course, you know, I would love to do business with everybody, but it's important to trust who your partner is, your processing provider, because, you know, there's some that aren't honest. There's a lot of rate increases that take place, and a lot of dealers that are being taken advantage of because the statements are a nightmare to be able to read. So I think it's important to also point that out, that having a great relationship with your provider is key, and they need to know how the dealership business works because it's different than other retail, as you well know. So
Julie Douglas knows this space. I can tell you that when she first came aboard a few months back at the Fixed Ops Roundtable, a lot of friends of the conference, like Adam Marburger, said, you know, it's about time. Julie's a great friend. She's highly recommended, and she's had great success. And she knows our space. She knows the dealership space, and she knows that fixed ops area, and she knows about all the changes that we've encountered over the last 2-3 years. And she's looking out and seeing things that we need to be aware of. So, Julie, tell us again, best way to reach out to Julie Douglas and, start that discovery with Dealer Pay.
Just call or text me direct, 314-578-3142. You're also welcome to email me, julie@dealer-pay.com. And either myself or one of my fabulous sales rock stars out there will be able to walk you through the process and make sure it works for you.
Julie, any last comments for our group now? Looking, here we are in mid-September, looking out into the fall, into the new year. Any final words of advice?
Volumes are still rocking. Dealers, you're doing great. The thing I keep hearing is about the FTC safeguards. I want to also chime in that Dealer Pay is 100% compliant with that. So we've got all that already covered. And like you said, we are looking forward. We're looking at things that are going to be in the space, and we're trying to figure out a way that our platform can best help dealers, get through any more challenges. But we love where we're at. We have the tagline, "We love dealers." So, that's pretty much what we're all about.
All right, Julie Douglas, everybody, from Dealer Pay. They love dealers. They're in this space. They're specific to fixed operations and dealership operations. And we highly encourage you to reach out to her. Julie, on behalf of the Fixed Ops community, thank you so much for being with us today.
Have a good one.
All right, you too. Julie Douglas from Dealer Pay, everyone here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.